Have you ever found yourself wondering how to make someone miss you? Maybe it's someone you care about deeply, someone who used to give you more attention, or someone you feel slowly becoming distant. It's a thought that can stay in your mind, because when someone matters to you, their attention and presence start to matter just as much. But here's something important to understand. Making someone miss you isn't about manipulation, control, or playing emotional games. If you approach it that way, it usually backfires. What actually works is much more natural, and it starts with how you carry yourself and how you manage your presence in their life. One of the biggest reasons people don't get missed is because they're always available. When you're constantly replying instantly, always ready to talk, always saying yes, and always adjusting your time for someone else, your presence becomes predictable, and predictability, while comfortable, can slowly reduce emotional impact. It doesn't create space for someone to feel your absence. If someone knows you'll always be there no matter what, they don't get the chance to wonder about you or feel that gap. This doesn't mean you should suddenly ignore them or act distant in a forced way. That kind of behavior feels unnatural. Instead, it means you need to genuinely have a life outside of that person. When you're busy with your own goals, your own work, your own hobbies, and your own social circle, your availability naturally becomes limited. And that's where the shift happens. It's not something you fake, it's something you live. When your life has depth, your absence has meaning. People begin to notice when you're not around because your presence isn't constant anymore. And that absence creates curiosity. They start to wonder what you're doing, who you're with, and why you're not as available as before. That curiosity is one of the first steps toward being missed. Another important factor is the emotional experience you create when you are present. People don't just miss physical presence, they miss emotional impact. Think about the conversations you have. Are they meaningful, engaging, and genuine? Or are they repetitive? Do you make the other person feel heard, understood, and comfortable? Or does the interaction feel routine? When someone associates you with positive emotions, comfort, laughter, understanding, or even inspiration, those feelings stay with them after you're gone. And when those feelings are missing, they begin to miss you. But if your interactions feel empty or forced, there's nothing for them to hold on to once you're not there. At the same time, it's important not to overgive. This is where a lot of people unintentionally reduce their own value. When you constantly give attention, reassurance, and emotional support, without any balance, it becomes expected rather than appreciated. Human nature adapts quickly. What once felt special becomes normal, and what becomes normal often loses its emotional weight. Creating a little bit of space allows that balance to return. It gives the other person a chance to invest in the connection too. And this is crucial, because when someone invests their time and effort into you, they become more emotionally connected. Effort creates attachment. The more someone has to reach out, initiate, or think about you, the more they begin to value your presence. Another element that plays a role is mystery, not in a dramatic or manipulative sense, but in a natural way. If someone knows everything about your day, every detail of your routine, there's no room left for curiosity. But when you keep parts of your life to yourself, when you don't feel the need to share everything immediately, it creates a sense of intrigue. This doesn't mean hiding things or being secretive. It simply means you don't have to reveal everything all at once. Let conversations unfold naturally. Let there be moments where the other person has to ask, has to wonder, and has to engage. To know more about you, that engagement builds interest, and interest is closely connected to missing someone. Confidence also plays a major role in all of this. When you're confident, you don't feel the need to chase attention. You're comfortable with space, you're comfortable with silence, and that energy is noticeable. It creates a different kind of presence, one that isn't based on need, but on self-assurance. When someone senses that you're not dependent on their attention, it changes the dynamic. Instead of you trying to hold their focus, they start moving toward you. And when that happens, they begin to think about you more, not because you're trying to make them, but because your presence feels valuable. It's also important to understand the role of absence itself. Sometimes, the only way someone realizes your value is when you're not there. When your messages stop being constant, when your presence isn't as frequent, it creates a shift. They notice the difference. But this only works if your presence had value in the first place. If the connection didn't have depth, if the conversations didn't matter. or if there wasn't any emotional impact, then creating distance won't suddenly make someone miss you. That's why quality matters. Another key aspect is self-respect. If you're always chasing someone, always adjusting your standards, and always accepting inconsistent behavior, it lowers how you're perceived. Not because you're not worthy, but because your actions suggest that your time and energy are always available. When you start respecting your own boundaries, everything changes. You don't respond to everything immediately. You don't tolerate behavior that feels one-sided, and you don't overextend yourself just to keep someone interested. This shift communicates something powerful, that your presence has value, and access to you isn't guaranteed. And when someone realizes that, they start paying more attention. They become more aware of when you're there and when you're not. And that awareness is what leads to missing someone. It's not about creating distance out of insecurity, it's about maintaining value. It's also worth acknowledging that you can't force someone to miss you, no matter how well you apply these ideas. The other person still has their own feelings, priorities, and level of interest. If the connection isn't strong enough, or if they're not emotionally invested, they may not respond the way you hope. And while that might feel disappointing, it's actually important information. Because the goal isn't just to be missed. The goal is to have a connection where both people naturally value each other's presence. If you have to constantly figure out how to make someone care, it may be a sign that the connection isn't as balanced as it should be. At the end of the day, making someone miss you isn't about tricks or strategies. It's about living a life where your presence feels meaningful, your time feels valuable, and your energy isn't overextended. It's about creating a connection where both presence and absence have impact. So instead of focusing only on how to make someone miss you, focus on becoming someone whose presence leaves an impression. Someone who is genuine, emotionally engaging, and self-respecting, because when those qualities are in place, missing you becomes a natural response, not something you have to force. And the most powerful part of all of this is that when you reach that point, you're no longer just trying to be missed. You're choosing connections where your presence is appreciated without effort. And that's the kind of dynamic that creates lasting value.